What is a biome? Biome is a very large ecological area that forms naturally and is known for the species that live there. Animals and plants with similar characteristics live and interact with one another in the various biomes that covers the Earth's surface. Earth biomes are made up with groups based on their climate, physical features, and the plants and animals that live there. The biomes all merge together to form a giant community of all living and non-living things. Some biomes are warm, some are cold, some are on land, and others are on water. And now let us take a look at 5 different biomes. The first biome is the desert. This biome is hot and dry. It covers about 1/5 of the Earth's surface. The soil there is sandy, rocky, or gravelly. Some deserts are cooler than others. If a desert is semi-arid, that means it gets slightly more rain than in an arid desert, which doesn't get any rain at all. The soil for growing things in arid desert is very poor, so there isn't a lot of plant life there. The animals that live there might burrow to avoid heat and comes out at night when it's cooler. 2 famous examples of desert are the Sahara Desert located in the North Africa and is well known for being very hot during the day and very cold during the night. The other one is the Great Basin Desert located in the United States Death Valley, which is the lowest point. North America is part of this desert. Grassland. A grassland is a big open area that is covered in grass. The grassland are divided into 2 types: the tropical and the temperate grassland. Tropical grasslands are sometimes called savanna. They are found in parts of Africa and Asia. The soil there is thin and includes mammals like zebra, lions, and giraffes. Temperate grasslands are mostly made up of grass with few trees and shrubs. They get more rain than tropical grasslands. The temperature in temperate grasslands are high in summer and freezing in winter. Prairies are part of the temperate grasslands. The forest. This biome contains trees which covers 30% of the Earth's surface. Forest plays an important role for climate control because they absorb a lot of carbon dioxide on air. Too much carbon dioxide can cause temperature to rise. The forest contains millions of different species, from plants to animals, and from fungi to different bacteria. Types of forest includes tropical rainforest, like the Amazon, and the temperate forest, which has trees that loses its leaf, and the boreal forest, which are found in many snowy areas and cold areas. The aquatic biome are found in water area and is the largest of all biomes. It covers about 70% of the Earth's surface. Millions of plants and animals live in an aquatic biome. This biome includes both fresh and salty water like rivers, lakes, ponds, seas, and the oceans. The last one is the tundra. A tundra is a large, flat, and treeless biome which includes the Arctic, located around the North Pole. The subsoil is always frozen. An alpine, which is the top of the mountain, is extremely cold and receives very tiny amount of rain. This biome covers 1/5 of the Earth's surface, which has few plants but some animals. Now that we are done talking with different biomes, let us now proceed to the ecosystems. Well, many of us think that ecosystems and biomes are the same with each other, but they are not. So what really is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is one part of a biome. In fact, there could be millions of ecosystems in a single biome. Ecosystems can exist almost anywhere, from underneath a rock to an entire forest. Even a small pond is an ecosystem. A pond includes water, light, and energy from the sun. Frogs, fish, snails, algae, microorganisms, and much more that live there. In an ecosystem, every living things and non-living things has a role to play. Their interaction is necessary for survival. In ecosystem, things are organized in different levels, starting with tiny molecules. Those molecules then make up various cells. Thousands of cells form tissues. And tissues make up organs, like our heart, kidneys, and lungs. All our organs make up an entire organ system, and that organ system makes an organism. We are an organism. Organisms are single species that are related genetically and can breed to have a baby. Living things breed or make babies of the same species. We humans breed with other humans, rabbits breed with other rabbits, and monkeys with other monkeys. A group of organisms that are the same species live in the same area and interact together is called a population. When population of different species live together in the same area and interact with each other, it forms a community. Unlike population, where just one species interact together, in a community, many different species live and interact with one another. For example, a rabbit might interact with a raccoon, birds, mice, and humans. When all living things interact with one another, as well as with non-living things, we call that an ecosystem. For example, we humans rely on other humans, but we also rely on the sun. Many birds rely on living things like worms and trees for foods and shelter. But they also rely on the air, which is not a living. Our home is an ecosystem. We live with other living things like our parents and our siblings. Maybe with a pet, a garden, and of course, the insects and other organisms in it. Our home also includes non-living things like heat, water, and the house itself, and many more. But all living things and non-living things depend on each other for survival. All things, either living or non-living, depends on the three cycles that we have tackled during our second video. Without water, carbon, and nitrogen cycles, all would come to its end with just a very short period of time. An ecosystem may exist in a simple trunk of a tree. Moisture can result in a trunk's decay. Tiny green plants like moss will eventually grow there. That moss will serve as the food for the insects. Animals like frogs and birds will then eat dead insects. And a frog may then become a food for bigger reptiles living in the trunk. All organisms in an ecosystem depends on each other for food and for survival. When there are changes in ecosystem, it can cause problems to one or more organisms that are part of it. Say for example, if a wildfire occurs, the trunks in that tree will burn up. Then the moss and the insects living there will die, which will affect the food products of frogs, and the frog might die as well. So the snake will start to migrate to find food for itself. If an organism cannot adapt the changes from ecosystem, the species may die out and become extinct. We humans contribute a big effect in the ecosystem through pollution, construction, and deforestation. There are many ecosystems that exist in various biomes in Earth. The different biomes merge together to create a biosphere. So a biosphere that we have tackled before is the sphere which covers all the life force or living things here on Earth. That's all for the ecosystem. Now that we are familiar with the term ecosystem, let us now proceed to the term species. So what really is a species?
18th century naturalist Carl Linnaeus used the term species to describe a group of very similar organisms. Linnaeus was interested in classifying all living things, and he came up with a system for grouping organisms and identifying the relationships between them based on their physical features. His system placed organisms with the most similar characteristics together in a group he called the species. This species group was then incorporated into ever larger groups based on shared physical features, right up to the level of kingdom. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. A species is defined as all organisms that are able to breed with one another and, most importantly, are able to produce fertile offspring. Horses are an example of such a group. All breeds of horse, including ponies, can mate and produce fertile offspring. However, although horses may mate with donkeys, their offspring will not be fertile. This means that horses and donkeys are placed in separate species groups, even though they are very closely related to one another. The species group is accepted as the smallest unit of biological classification and is always given a Greek or Latin name. In horses, this name is Ferus, whilst in donkeys, the species name is Kian. Both species belong in the larger group or genus known as Equus. These two species both evolved through process of natural selection from a common ancestor called Equus simplicidens or Hageman horse. The emergence of a new species from an existing one happens as a result of natural selection. This process is called speciation. Some scientists believe that speciation occurs continuously over a long period of time, whilst others believe that speciation occurs only rarely and in relatively short bursts, sometimes as a result of a dramatic environmental event. An example of speciation event happened in North America in the 19th century. At that time, hawthorn flies traditionally laid their eggs on hawthorn fruit, which were then eaten by the newly hatched maggots. Some time after the introduction of non-native apple trees, a new hawthorn fly was recorded which laid its eggs on apples. Over time, this new hawthorn fly stopped laying eggs on hawthorn in favor of apples. This new fly is now called the apple maggot fly. Human beings can directly influence or even potentially cause speciation. A program of selective breeding of livestock over several years led to the creation of now domestic sheep, Ovis aries, which is unable to produce fertile offspring when mated with Ovis orientalis, the species from which it is descended. So, from this video, you should now know that a species is a group of organisms that can produce fertile offspring. In some cases, such as donkeys and horses, different species can mate, but their offspring are not fertile, hence donkeys and horses are different species. You should also know that new species can emerge for different reasons, such as a change in habitat and also through humans selectively breeding. See if you can find other examples of speciation.